On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick return from the Life Day break to celebrate the news of Dave Filoni becoming the CCO at Lucasfilm and what that could mean for future Star Wars projects. They'll also touch on some recent comments from Daisy Ridley about her next Star Wars film. Plus, they'll share what shows a big magazine is claiming will air in 2024 now that the strikes have been resolved. If that doesn't ignite your lightsabers, then stick around for the ranking of the 12 BOKKEN Jedi that were trained after Order 66. Of course, the show will end with the question of the week responses and the latest round of Top 5 Star Wars fan artist features. Punch it, Chewie.
Hey now everybody, sorry about that. We're talking gaming. That's right, PlayStation time, PS Portal showing up left and right at SWTS HQ. So welcome. It's good to see some of you back here. Hold on, I got the chat covered up. I know I saw Sir Dork up in there, JOD, James English, Rudiger John, whoever that is. We love to see you. Well, hello guys. GM Luke. What are we looking at here? GM Luke. What did I put out there? Ray is the bestest there ever was. All right. I don't know what they're saying in the chat, but we'll get there. We've got some fun stuff to talk about today, right, Nick? I mean, it's weird. The strike ended, so the news cycle is starting to churn again on Star Wars. And last week, right before Thanksgiving over here in the States, we got some big news coming out of Lucasfilm. So we're going to talk about that. Dave's new official promotion, which he's always kind of been that, but it sounds like he's actually going to be the dude now, so that's good.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was confused because I was like, didn't this happen already? Like, I thought that I was in the Twilight Zone, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but apparently, Nick, he's now really going to be the CCO.
He's
right.
Official.
Yeah, he's
official.
Actually going to do something in that role, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. We've got some updates coming from Daisy about her movie and how it's going to be all crazy and exciting, and we even have a trade mag out there, Nick, saying that 3... not just 2, but 3 live-action Star Wars shows will be hitting Disney Plus in 2024. I know you and I kind of spitballed on that a week or 2 weeks ago when we were last on the airwaves. So we'll discuss what Empire's saying there. I don't necessarily trust what they're putting out in their magazines, but usually if you're going to print it in a magazine that's as popular as an Empire, you must know something that our two dumbasses do not. And to tickle your taints just a little bit more today, we have another special topic coming at you. That's right. We are ranking the BOKKEN Jedi, and there's 12 of them. Nick and I are already debating if some of them should be considered BOKKEN, so I'm sure that will come up too. Mm-hmm. And we're not saying BOKKEN or broken. We are saying BOKKEN. We're not saying broken. But you could technically say most of these Jedi we're going to talk about are also broken Jedi, right?
Probably broken.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
the guy that I know is number 1, I would argue is very fucking broken, at least by the time we link back up with him again. So yeah, we'll get into a fun little ranking debate. I know the fans like that type of shit. But as always, keep it coming. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We've always just kind of been like a current events type of show. 2 gas bags sitting here talking about whatever, what's happening in Star Wars. But it's seeming that fans, or at least on the socials, Nick, they gravitate more towards very pointed topical conversations. You know, our last one, best hero planet. Nick mopped the floor with my Naboo pick. Mm-hmm. We have a bunch of clips out there on the best and more special edition edits that are still getting some juice. So, hey, it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan. So, we've been gone 2 weeks, Nick. You were talking about some of the things you got into. real quick before you get into your recap of Mockingbird. We were just talking about both of us got our PS Portals over the break.
Yes.
If you're unfamiliar with this, it's essentially a $225 device to make using your PS5's remote play a little less intense in terms of what you need to do to get it set up. And I have found that my Portal has gotten me back in the gaming. I've kind of been in a slump the past 6 weeks. Haven't done shit. Never beat Starfield. Still feel like I have to, but just didn't feel like gaming. You know, it happens, Nick. We're old, or I'm old. You're getting there. But the Portal shows up, and of course I'm like, ooh, shiny new toy. Feels good. You know, it's got that the white look, the controller feel, the PS5 controller. Boot it up, and lo and behold, what do I start to see? But a curse for all gamers, Nick. Something you may participate in your own work. Black Friday sales, right? I was like, oh shit. $15.99 Star Wars bundle. Bought. Final Fantasy XVI. Bought. Monopoly. Bought. Super Mario Odyssey. Bought. I mean, it reminded me of an old school Steam summer sale last week because I had no reason to be buying all these fucking games when I have games that need finished and I barely game. But it felt good to contribute to making those companies hit the black last week. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But I have been playing Jedi Academy on the Portal, thoroughly enjoying it. Thoroughly enjoying it.
Such a good game.
Nick, have you played it recently? Like, when's the last time you threw in the first Academy?
It's been a while. It's been a while since I played Academy, but I played it all the way through 3 different times. So it's probably been almost 10 years since I've played it, if not longer. But I'm like when I first got it, I played that game as many times through as I could. And the reason I chose to play it through 3 different times is because there's 3, like at a certain point in the game, you get to choose what lightsaber style you want to play with. Like, do you want to continue playing with a single lightsaber? Do you want to have a dual bladed lightsaber? Do you want to have 2 lightsabers, dual wielding? So I played through with all of the different lightsaber options. So I was that dedicated to the game.
I'll tell you what, in League, I'll get to your question. It's a good question because Nick and I are essentially asking ourselves the same one offline. And we all know I am a asshole. I am a consumer asshole. I will buy anything if I think it looks cool and I know someone else is getting it. Now, I didn't know Nick was getting the Portal, so I was FOMOing off of another friend getting it. But yeah, we're dickheads. I forgot what I was going to say anyway. So League, what is the point of the Portal if there is a PS5? It's so someone like myself can game around the house and be around the family and not just in the gaming den all day. I tend to not like just being in my cave that much anymore, which is odd because it's my best technological setup, best TV, best sound. All the consoles are there. I got Atmos. I got the lights you can see behind me. It's fucking crazy. But as a dad, someone that wants to be present sometimes at night when they're watching fucking Barbie or something, I want to be on the couch, sitting next to a fire, playing my PS5. So that's mostly why I got it. I agree with what League's saying here. Like it's a very just dumb device because it's purely just a remote player for your console. It has no guts of its own. It's essentially a screen and a vibrating controller with some speakers.
Yeah.
So it was more convenience for me, League. I was able to do the same thing with the Steam Deck, but sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. I've not tried my Portal outside my own network, but I know things get pretty fucking dicey if not working at all once you leave your home network with remote play. But it's worked out perfectly for me, got me gaming again. I really am ashamed that I missed Final Fantasy, what is it, 16?
16, yeah.
It's fucking great, dude. I mean, it is. It's like completely compelling story. The gameplay is very action RPG-esque. Yes, you can go brain dead and essentially just hit buttons and it'll do shit for you. It's awesome. I bought Crisis Core because you're like, yeah, dude, get it. So I was like, hey, it's on sale. I'll buy that too.
Crisis Core is good. I played the original Crisis Core when it came out on PSP, and it was fantastic, and the new iteration of Crisis Core is also really good. But yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy 16 was one of those games. Like, I've always been a huge Final Fantasy fan. I have played. Actually, I just resubscribed to Final Fantasy 14, which is their MMO, because I had played through all of the expansions except the most recent one, and the most recent one I already owned it. I just never played through it, so I resubscribed to play through the new expansion. But I played 15, and it just didn't hit for me. Like, 15 was not the Final Fantasy experience that I was looking for, so I was like a little hesitant to move on 16. But it seems like that they've made better with 16 than they did with 15.
Yeah, I tried to play 15. I kind of dug it, but it was one of those deals where on the Xbox, for some reason, it would no longer load my save. So I was like, fuck you.
Oh, Jesus.
We're done.
Yeah.
And it sucks because it looked like a good game, more of a traditional Final Fantasy, where this one, Nick, it feels more like I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it, a Ghost of Tsushima type.
Okay. So like a little bit more free reign for exploration and stuff like that.
That's where things get fucky.
That's where it differs.
It's not even close to as open world as Ghost, but in terms of the gameplay, it's kind of like it's very third person action RPG slashy wacky. So
okay.
I don't know. It was pretty great, and I got it for 45% off. So the sales kicked my ass last week, but I do feel like I was contributing to the GDP of the country like a good American should during Black Friday week.
I definitely grabbed my fair share of Black Friday items as well. So some of them gift related, some of them personal for me, because every time you see something on sale, you got to get something for yourself, right?
Yeah,
it can't just be for other people.
I'm pretty much only a to Matt from Matt type of dickhead. So I mean, thank God I got a wife that actually has compassion and thinks of other people. Because otherwise I would do very poorly with giving gifts and making people happy, because it's all about me, just like it is on the Star Wars Time Show. All right, so I know. One thing before Nick gets into his breakdown of Mockingbird. I fucked today. I didn't literally fuck it, but I kind of fucked the show up a little. All right. I forgot to post the question of the week. It's not worth posting now because no one's going to see it, because the only people that actually see our content are here now. So I did pin a question at the top of the live stream chat. By the way, if you want to join the live stream, don't forget Tuesdays, 5 p. East, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. But maybe you can punch something up in the live stream if you can even see it. Either way, question of the week's probably going to be nice and short this week, if not completely canceled. All right, dude, I've been wanting to see it. There are a few adult movies in the theaters. I had to, and it's fine. I got to go with the family to Troll Band Together and Wish, which are both great family kid movies, but I have had Mockingbird and Napoleon on my radar, and it sounds like you got to see The Bird, right?
Yes, yeah. So we went to go see Hunger Games, Songbird and Snakes, like Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't read the book. Taylor read the book, and like she was a big fan of the book when it released, so she's been waiting for this movie for quite a while. It was also our first time seeing a full film in the 4DX experience with like the moving seats. And
did they light the roof on fire? Like, was it that 4D?
So they did have they had like flashing lights, and there at a certain point there was also like smoke that rose up right in front of the screen.
Holy shit.
Seats were bouncing around like you're on a theme park ride. Every so often you get like air bursts.
Was
like
that
little
fun?
Bits of water.
Did you like that?
It was.
Or was it too much?
Actually, it was pretty entertaining. Like it was my first time ever going to it, so I didn't really have an expectation of what it was going to be. But at one point, like the movements are not like slight, like they are like very theme park oriented. So like sometimes they will like throw you a certain way, or like the seats will shift a certain way, and it's like, oh man, I'm like fucking moving here.
Do you have to wear seatbelts or harnesses or anything?
No, nothing on the seats. So the seats were all normal, there was a button to toggle off like water. So like if there was a moment that you would get like sprinkled with water, you could turn that off.
Holy shit. What chain does this then?
That was Regal. So Regal is our closest movie theater.
Wait, like $50 a seat?
I think it was, so I have the unlimited, and with the unlimited, the ticket was only $8. Usually the tickets are free with unlimited, but it was $8 for me for unlimited. And when I bought Taylor's, I think it was 24 for her ticket. So it was a bit of a higher price. But the experience was incredible. I mean, the sound was amazing. The addition of like the flashing lights and the moving seats were awesome. But the movie itself was really well done. If you're a fan of the Hunger Games series, I would definitely recommend going to see it. It's a really great story about how President Snow in the original trilogy kind of comes to be President Snow as we know him. And it really did a great job of like setting the scene for what the Hunger Games were to become in the original trilogy of movies. So I was a big fan of the film. Taylor also enjoyed it. Even though they, like when you're doing book to film adaptations, you're going to leave stuff out. Like she was, aware of all the stuff that they left out, but she still enjoyed the film overall. In fact, she said that it was her favorite of all the Hunger Games movies.
Yeah, look at that.
So, and I'm like, honestly, it's pretty close for me as well. Like the last two movies get a little bit squirrely because you cut the second or the last book in half to make two films, where really the main criticism that I can understand or that I have picked up from other people watching it is that they wish that this movie was split into two. They would have actually preferred two parts to one. So, overall though, I'm very pleased with the movie. I thought it was really good, and I would definitely recommend it for other people to go see for sure.
Solid. Yeah, I need to get out there. That and Napoleon. I think this week Silent Night opens. I'm always down for a revenge, just beat 'em up, gory, break bones, smash faces type of flick. Yeah, not me. Like I said, I just stuck to the kids' movies. Got into an old series. I don't know if anyone else checked it out, but I'm digging it on TV Plus, called Silo, with Rebecca Ferguson and what's his name, Tim Robbins. It's pretty fantastic. All right. Well, since this is the Star Wars time show, I think it's time for Star Wars time. You know what I mean? Poor Linda. Poor Linda went to a 4DX and kept falling out of her seat.
Oh, dude, we saw this one and we're like, it doesn't move you all the time.
Yeah.
Like you're not constantly
I just see
moving.
like babies popping up, like people turning into popcorn in this thing.
Yeah. But what we did see, so we saw the trailer for the Fall Guy at that movie, and we're like, oh my God, this movie would be so crazy to see in 4DX, because Fall Guy is like crazy action all the time. So I'm just like, are you just going to be constantly moving and shaking around and all this other stuff, or are they going to try to limit your amount of motion? So yeah, we definitely want to do it again though. It was a cool experience, and I think that we're trying to go to another film where the 4DX might be a little bit more, like used a little bit more than it was.
Linda did 4DX at Avatar, Way of the Water. So you're probably getting a hose. Like, you probably had to wear a fucking rain jacket to go to that.
Yeah, maybe so. Oh man. Kept sliding out. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty fun. Like, it was a pretty fun experience for sure, especially like the closest thing that I can describe it to, and this is kind of what it was designed after, but if you've ever been to like Disney or Universal or like a theme park that has one of those like, oh yeah, it's like an immersive screen, like immersive short film experience, where it was like, if you go to Universal, there's like the Shrek 4D ride, where it's like you sit in movie theater seats and you move around and all the stuff happens as it happens on the screen. That's kind of what it was built off of. Yeah, it was really cool.
All right. Well, we're talking like the Fall Guy game series. Is that what we're talking about here?
So Fall Guy, Bat brought it up in the chat just now. Do you guys remember the Fall Guy series? Fall Guy was an old TV series that was essentially based off of like a stunt man. Like you follow a stunt man through all of his.
This is the one with Homeboy, right?
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I got you. No, it looks good.
Yeah.
That looks good.
Yeah, so that may be our next 4DX experience is Fall Guy, and see if we get thrown out of our seats too.
I don't know. I got to find a movie this Thursday. I need to go. I don't know if it's going to be this, Napoleon, or Silent Night. We'll see. You'll find out next week. That's why you got to tune in, subscribe, do all that happy horse shit for the Star Wars Time Show, right? There you go. There's your subscribe reminder. Get to it. All right, my friends, like we said, we got some Star Wars planned for you. Not that. We'll get there. The old BOKKEN Jedi stuff, that's coming up last. But before we get there, like I teased earlier, some big news came out last week from Variety about Mr. Dave Filoni, a fellow Pittsburgher. Downtown Pittsburgh. But here's the deal. And as Nick said, I kind of felt the same way, Nick, when I first saw this. It's like, what, is this old? Or are they just trying to get some juice on a Tuesday of Thanksgiving week? But no, it's a real thing. And it kind of blew up the Star Wars newsverse last week. And that is, if you are a Star Wars fan and you don't know what we're talking about, good for you. You're not psychotic. Mm-hmm. So I wish I was more like you. But here's what happened. Dave Filoni has been officially made the CCO, the Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm. And it has been made explicitly clear in the article, which we have nice and summarized from our local AI intern for everyone to read. It was a very long read, a good read. But I was like, hey, AI, I'm dumb. Most people that listen to us are stupid. Can you dumb this up for us and just pull out the quotes? And it did it very nicely. I love my AI. But here's the difference now, and Nick's not wrong. We've heard of Dave, I believe, has been CCO for a minute now. Okay, like for a while. Okay, this isn't this didn't seem like a new announcement, but there are some caveats to this, Nick, that I think are different. And the big one here is Dave saying essentially like, now I'm what's called Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm. In the past, I would be brought into it. I would see it after it had already developed a good way. So when he was pretend CCO, they would loop him into other projects after they had been essentially written, scouted out, productioned, concept arted. I mean, he was basically brought in at the end. Like, hey, Dave, look, we did all this. What do you think? Seems like an odd way to use someone's talents like that, especially you consider Dave is the second coming of George Lucas, but that's the way they decide to use him. This is changing, Nick. All right. Mm-hmm. He has explained in this write-up, as we talk here, obviously he's going to be working even closer with Kathleen now and Carrie Beck, who is, I believe, like Kathy's second in command, or Carrie's big. All right. But he's going to work hand in hand with them. And what he says here is, when we're planning the future of what we're doing now, I'm involved at the inception phase.
Yeah.
I think that's all anyone needs to hear here, right? This is what a lot of us have been screaming about for the past few years. Like, what's going on here? Like, who's picking the projects? Who's throwing these movie titles out there and hiring directors? Is anyone minding the lore? Is anyone minding the canon? Is anyone making sure all this shit jives together? Where was Dave when the sequels were being written, right? That type of shit. If Dave was doing what he's going to be doing now, Nick, we would not be in the sequel mess we are in. Now, obviously, nothing we can do about that. No reason to cry over spilt milk. You can't do anything to the sequels. They are what they are. Somehow he returned. Somehow Rey is the progeny of an aborted clone and some random woman that had sex with a clone. It's weird. That shit should go away, right? Like do things get fixed going forward, Nick?
Oh, no.
Okay,
no,
good.
That's not going to change. 100%. I know that since, TROS came out, people's whole deal has been, we need to abort everything in the sequel trilogy and redo it. That is not going to happen. The unfortunate circumstance and the unfortunate reality is that we are going to work towards making those things make a little bit more sense and potentially like filling in gaps leading up to these story points that seemingly came out of nowhere. But we're not going to get to a point to where like they go into Tross and they edit
that's what I'm saying.
And like
those ships has sailed. All right, this just means everything that has not already been put onto film. Which I mean that's excluding Skeleton Crew, the Acolyte. Dave was not involved in those at the inception phase, but everything moving forward. So you'd think Mandalorian season 4, which he always is, anyways. But if they continue, well, they're not continuing Andor. Obviously, if they're continuing Ahsoka, that's his baby, so it makes sense. But he would be there working with everybody. And really, Nick, since none of the movies outside of Daisy's really have anything around it, he's probably involved at those now at day one. Like, actually, hey, Mangold, give me your script. All right. You suck! You're an idiot. Yeah. They would never do that. This is what you have to do. That's what we need. Like, as Nick is saying, he is 100% correct. This isn't going to fix what has already come or what's out there or what has been shot. But moving forward, any new Star Wars project will involve Dave Filoni at the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I would assume that includes Taika's.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, we all know that Taika is working on his script actively and, you know, he's taking his time. So Taika's is going to go through the Dave Filoni experience now. Mangold's, the origin of the Jedi story will go through the Filoni shakedown and then everything to come after. And I think that, like you said, that's kind of what fans expected from the get-go, is that you would have kind of a lore keeper.
You remember the story group, everybody? The story group?
Do you remember Pablo Hidalgo? Like, does Pablo Hidalgo still have a job now? Like, I don't know what
I think he just yells at Star Wars Theory on Twitter a lot, I think.
Yeah, so maybe he gets paid to do that.
Be mad, we love you, brother.
But yeah, I mean, it's the role that he should have been in from the start, and I know that they wanted to like allow him to really spin up the TV end of things because that was his sole focus. Like, once they started The Mandalorian and everything like that, is, you know, he was heavily involved with John in developing what is now the Star Wars TV universe, and that's a heavy load to lift. But now that has been established, and now that they are kind of, you know, I don't want to say coming to the end of the Star Wars TV universe, but, you know, more of like coming to a conclusion point for the certain storylines that are in effect now in Star Wars TV. He's probably got some of that off of his plate, and now he can focus on, you know, revitalizing the Star Wars film universe. Yeah,
you're probably right. He probably, I mean, you would hope they're going to use him the most to get the movies back up running. And not that we care, like we just care that they're good. We don't care if they make $1 billion, but they do. So yeah, I think you're on to something there, where he has already been so heavily involved in at least the Mandoverse wing, right, of Star Wars TV. We're not really worried there. I mean, maybe he now has a little more authority to go to John, like, hey, John, I don't know if we should spend the whole episode, you know, hanging out with Jack Black and Lizzo, but for the most part, he's already been involved in those day one discussions. I think Nick is really hitting the nail on the head, and that he's probably going to be wielded the most for getting the film universe back up and running. Real quick though, I want to thank B Mad for that shout out there, giving us his best BOKKEN Jedi. Would be Ezra. Cal does not count. He was trained before Order 66. So you're going Ezra. Yep. And he's also, Nick, giving us some feedback on Sotner. I like that. Sotner, Scoundrels of the New Republic. Sorry.
Of the New Republic.
Sorry, Jesus. I've been shit. And I should know better. I'm playing Jedi Academy set in the New Republic.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
Be mad. In my Star Wars universe, any species can have sex with.
Yeah, so I wanted to finish that. He said, P.S. loved the Scoundrels of the New Republic video, which, if you don't know, we do a Star Wars themed D&D It's a slow burn, right, Nick? We don't record these at any sort of pace. We were supposed to do one this week. Shit's already happened. It's been bumped 2 weeks from now. Hopefully we'll get it done before the end of the year so we have some content to take a week or two off. But B-Mad was digging it, and he didn't know Ewoks could get laid by Twi'leks. Well, Chief Matlu is a hairy, sneaky, sexy little thing. So you got to watch out. Indeed, he likes his women of many colors with things coming out of their head, and of course his drugs. So thank you, B-Mad.
Indeed.
I will, since Mando Pirate's in here, I'll let everyone know that my character for Jedi Academy, Nick, is the red female Twi'lek wearing the skimpiest of costumes you could give her at the character creation stage.
I expected no less from you, sir. I expected no less.
And I am making her a little dark side too. She's a little shady. Nice. Oh, look at this!
Big thank you to 160 Trevor as well.
That is Zavu. Okay.
Zavu Gaz.
We are only method when we're online. If we're online and we're live streaming Nick, and we're talking Sotner, we got to go method. So I don't refer to him as Zavu. You got it, 16 Shooter. We'll email Dave after the show and let him know that Tony Gilroy needs to become Lord of Writing for all of Star Wars. We wield that type of power. But yeah, I'm glad some people, Nick, I saw some of the feedback in Discord about Scoundrels. I'm glad a few of you still dig that. It is fun, even though I look like a little pouty bitch by the end of the last episode. But it's all right. I had my talking to and realized I was being a fuckface. So I'm not saying I'm gonna change much, but I'm going to improve and not break character like I did last time. Let's just say Matlu's pit stop in the whorehouse was probably a little too long and unscripted, and that was my fault, not Nick's. All right. Anyways, Nick, back to our man Dave here. Thanks to everyone on the live stream. Love the interactions. Like I said, keep it coming. You know, if you got a topic you want us to talk about next week, we will make an effort to do so. All right, okay, so back to Filoni. So, you know, we're all happy about this. It is great news. It's odd that it took him this long to figure this shit out, especially when George has essentially been telegraphing for the past 20 years, like, I picked this guy to be me, all right? Literally handpicked. If you don't know the story about how Dave began working with George, go look it up. It's funny. Like, Dave thought he was getting pranked. He didn't believe it. He's working on SpongeBob, and he shows up, and him and George talk for like an hour. He thought he blew it, and George's like, "Nope, you're perfect." And here we go. So, but anyways, Nick, what he's saying here, and I like this too. Some may not, but he's not going to become, Lord Filoni and dictate what everyone has to do. In fact, he's saying, "I'm not telling people what to do, but I do feel I'm trying to help them tell the best story that they want to tell." Very, very diplomatic. And I do believe him, Nick. I don't look at Dave Filoni as some guy that likes conflict or is an asshole. Now, we don't know. No one knows how people truly are. But he does seem like a pretty big, nerdy softy. You know what I mean? So I don't see him walking into a creative meeting and be like, "Hey, you fucking idiots. Why would you do that? No, you got to do what Lord Filoni says."
Yeah, I mean, the way that he describes this is essentially what I think his working relationship is with John. You know, like, Jon Favreau is the father of the Mandoverse, and Filoni has always been there as like his sounding board. Like, hey, I want to tell a story about these characters, and I want to tell a story set in this timeline and make it feel authentic to Star Wars. And I really feel like while John is the driving creative force of it, Dave is the one there to be like, if you want to tell this more effectively, do it this way. Or if you want to bring in a character that can really spice up this scene or bring some dynamicism between these other characters, here's a character that you could use. And I think that is what would be super valuable to somebody coming in, like for somebody like James Mangold or Taika Waititi, who's never worked in Star Wars before and is coming into it, you know, in their first time building out a movie that's going to be shown to millions of people across the world. Like that, like you want somebody like Dave Filoni in your corner saying like, here's how you tweak this to make it more authentic. Here's how you use this character to make it feel more Star Wars. And I feel like that's what really has made the TV universe feel so cohesive up until this point. Like, even though there are different series and even though there are a ton of different characters that are in play just within the Mandoverse properties, they feel interconnected because Dave has been there sewing those pieces together. You know, like Dave has all of these, or John has all of these ideas, and Dave is there to be the connective tissue between all of it. And I really do feel like now that Star Wars is starting to expand outside of like our known timelines and our known spaces in the universe and our known characters, that having somebody like Dave to keep the essence of Star Wars in all of it is very important.
You know what? As we're talking about this, I just thought of a fun topic. Obviously not for today. But I want to do, how about this, people listening out there, and of course, Nick, what if we did a special segment on what if Dave Filoni was present for The Force Awakens? Or what if Dave Filoni was present for The Last Jedi? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think
I'm going to write that down, and we can spend a little time on that in between shows. So there you go. We're just tickling your taints, as we like to do here, tweaking your nipples, whatever gets your socks off. But as we were sitting there and Nick's talking like, hey, what would have Dave has said to John, because they did work hand in hand pretty much from the get-go. What I want to start pretending with Nick is, what would have Dave have said to JJ, Ryan, and JJ? So that'll be for a future cast. I'm writing it down currently because I'll forget in 10 seconds. What if Dave was present for the sequels? There we go. Do we like that, everybody? Does that sound like a good one? Who cares? I came up with it, so it is a good one. It's a great one, in fact. Thank you. Okay, so within this article, he keeps going on, and really, it's like I said, Nick, you could feel everyone is just blowing their load now that the strike is over. It's been great following people like Iman, Natasha, even Mark. I mean, hell, Nick, they were all up. All the Star Wars stars were at Fan Expo San Francisco this past weekend. Our buddy SW Props, I mean, he's like in it these days. He's got so many clients. He's hobnobbing with all these people that sell their autographs. It looks fantastic. So kudos to Justin for that. But everyone's out. Everyone's out and about. Everyone's loving Star Wars, talking about Star Wars. And in this article, Nick, we finally, for the first time, started to get some insights from the actors of Ahsoka, because they were muzzled the whole time their show was coming out. So Hayden was featured. He had a pretty good quote there on his return as Anakin. And I kind of dug this because it plays into a lot of the fan debates we had. Like, was that Ghost Anakin? What was really happening? The WBW. And even Hayden was kind of playing it a certain way that wasn't necessarily what Dave was telling him. So, Christensen talked about, Nick, how he, on purpose, kind of played this version of Anakin with a bit of uncertainty. And, like, am I a ghost or am I in Ahsoka's head? Like, he wasn't choosing one or the other. Like, Hayden kind of had his vision of what was happening. Filoni had his, but ultimately they wanted us to kind of be the one. So here's what Hayden said. That's the beauty of how the episode is constructed, in my opinion. Inevitably, the audience has to question what it is they're watching. Is this really the world between worlds? What is the world between worlds? Is this actually the spirit of Anakin Skywalker? Or is this all in Ahsoka's subconsciousness? And we're just going down the yellow brick road as she's drowning and fighting for her life. I think that the episode provides a few really good clues, but it doesn't spell it out for you. So let us spell it out for you. It was the WBW, and that was Anakin's spirit. But I always love these types of insights and how these humans go about crafting these characters and their performances.
Yeah. I mean, I was always under the impression that we were in the WBW too. I feel like if it was just in Ahsoka's head, it would have been a very different experience. It would have almost been like, the life reflection type of thing. And while there was some life reflection in there, it was changed. It wasn't exactly like a shot for shot remake of her memories. Like she was going in as her current self back to her younger self and experiencing those moments as an adult. And, you know, usually if it's like death throes and you're doing your life reflection in those moments, you don't have that type of control over your previous experiences. So I think like that was one thing that really separated it. And then also, to me, it was just like Anakin's demeanor, like I feel like if it was a life reflection that is going on in Ahsoka's head, the projection of Anakin that she would see would be very different than what we got in the show.
I mean, Nick, we talked about it. If he was truly a figment of her dying imagination, he would have known everything about her past, and he didn't. He didn't know about the Siege of Mandalore and other things. So, but like I said, I mean, Filoni himself argues that he prefers to let idiots like you and me and people who listen to us debate this. But he emphasized to everyone and Hayden, like, listen, this episode, this show is not about Anakin. George resolved Anakin's thread, whether we like it or not. We all know I wasn't a huge fan of how we initially did it in episodes 1 through 6, but it's gotten much better thanks to supplemental material. I don't really want to go into this because you people get so ageist over the fucking prequels. It's kind of concerning. Like, seriously, get a life. But here he goes, and this is coming from Filoni. My feeling about Anakin is that George resolved everything about him. I don't think I have anything to do there. I'm not trying to add anything to that, he says. Everything Anakin's involved with is about her. It's about her point of view on Anakin, and it's about what Anakin taught her. He's there in more of an Obi-Wan role that we saw in the old movies. Okay, so I think we all kind of got down with that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I mean,
go ahead, sorry.
You know, the Obi-Wan role is an interesting way to look at it for sure. I think that he was more like Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan was alive than he was like Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan was a ghost. I'll put it that way. Like he was much more of a teacher during the WBW time than Obi-Wan was when he was a ghost. Obi-Wan almost spoke to Luke in like riddles.
He didn't teach shit, dude. Once he was a ghost, he's like, hey, you're almost dying of hypothermia. You need to go find a little green monster on Dagobah. And that was it. And I was like, okay, we're good.
Luke's out here like, I'm literally dying in the snow. And you're saying like, hey, man, when you figure this out, just go to this other planet. It's like, what about what's happening right now?
I mean, Obi-Wan, and that's why I always laugh at people who are like, you know, raise a Mary Sue. She barely was trained. I mean, when did Luke go through like years of training?
Luke had 2.5 days of training with Obi-Wan before he got cut in half.
And that was just wearing a fucking mask and playing with a lightsaber.
And then he spent a couple weeks with Yoda
on
Dagobah.
If you use the timeline in ESB where Han and company, they're running from the Empire, he's there for like 2 days.
I would say even a week.
Maybe
like
a day.
Very little time.
Maybe 3 days. But hey, listen, I don't get upset about that type of shit because A, I know Star Wars isn't real. B, I know the Force is real, but not the way Star Wars kind of portrays it. And C, go back to point A, it's not real. So who fucking cares if Luke or Rey or Bob's uncle is strong at the Force and was able to wield it without years and years of training? I mean, that's silly shit here. But anyways, this was a cool quote from Hayden because I think a lot of us kind of picked up on this. The version of Anakin we saw in Ahsoka was the pinnacle of what he should be. That was the chosen one. He could dip light, he could dip dark. But what could he also do? And he technically did. He could save people from dying. So I think this is a fun quote here. There's a lot there to unpack potentially. I was getting to play a version of this character that I hadn't before. And that was the all-knowing, all-powerful Jedi Master who could wield both sides of the Force, light and dark at will. And maybe has the power to save Ahsoka's life. Which also is very interesting because that's the power that he was trying to achieve when he pledged himself to the dark side.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, I think that Dave took the opportunity to show the audience like what his true potential was. and I think that
I mean,
that
we
was
all,
done really
I mean,
well.
we all reacted with like, oh, yeah, like we want to get it tattooed on our face, and we want to have seizures just watching him flip in and out of the armor and back to Lord Vader. No, it was great. What's B-Mad saying here? Rot's Anakin had more character development than Luke and Rey. I said, I
don't agree on the Luke part. The Rey part, I think that Luke had fantastic character development. If you are familiar with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, like Luke's character followed that to a T. Like Joseph Campbell was a famous writer who laid out
4 to 6, right? His complete journey. Yeah.
Yes. From A New Hope to ROTJ to Jedi. I feel like that is a prototypical hero's journey. And I feel like what we got with Rey initially was trying to recreate that in TFA. You're trying to recreate a heroic journey for another character, obviously gets derailed and then gets derailed further. I mean, Anakin and Rots is
I don't think he's developed. That's always been my. He's just the Anakin. Like we don't ever see him. I know everyone yelled at me like, "Well, what about Sidious?" Telling him, okay. Did we ever see Anakin in Revenge of the Sith struggle with his light and darkness? Never.
Yeah, I mean the moment, like the problem with Anakin
no development.
and Rots is that they try to fit a character journey that would take a long time and a lot of exposition into one, not even a full movie, essentially
like
2/3 of a movie,
like 45 minutes.
Because like at a certain point he falls and then it's over.
Right.
His journey
There's
ends.
no development outside of him losing some appendages.
Yeah. So like what you really like, where you really get Anakin's heroic journey is through the development of Clone Wars, where you get to see his disillusionment with the Jedi Order. You get to see the relationship that he builds with Obi-Wan and with Ahsoka and with all of the other tertiary characters that are introduced through the Clone Wars. You get to see those bonds he built. You get to see him grow in his potential to be a great Jedi. And then towards the end of the Clone Wars, specifically in season season 5, 6, and 7, where like things are coming to an end, you start to see his disillusionment with the Jedi, the reasons behind the disillusionment with the Jedi, and how the relationships break down with all of those different characters. Like in Rots itself, you don't get that. No. Like the last time he sees Obi-Wan before their meeting on Mustafar, they're talking to each other as brothers, and I think one of the last lines that Obi-Wan says to him is like, I don't know what I would do without you, Anakin, or something akin to that. Like
you're right. Those two talking before Obi goes to Utapau is about it. There's one scene after he finds out he can't be master, that he's bitching. He's like, yo, this is kind of fucked up. All right, that's a little bit. You're getting a little insights into Anakin and how he's feeling, but that's it. That's what I've been saying. And I know I don't explain it correctly because I end up just start fucking yelling like a lunatic. Mm-hmm. But you cannot sit here and tell me that Anakin is a developed character in Rots. He's a guy that becomes a guy, like with a flip of a fucking switch. He never struggles with his darkness. He never, like, his dream is about his wife dying. His dream isn't about becoming evil to save his wife. Like, that's what I want to see. And we got that in Clone Wars. And Bat is 100% correct. I've said this too. Attack of the Clones has a better Anakin portrayal than Rots, at least his dark side. That scene when he is kind of whining to Padme and admitting that he just committed an atrocity, that's what we needed more of in Rots. As he was a Jedi Knight, not still a Padawan, as a hero. We need to start to see him slip a little bit and say fucked up things about Obi-Wan and do fucked up shit. We didn't get any of that. He was general hero guy, literally to go save the day. And then when Mace shows up, he's like, fuck it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm bad. It just feels like, cheap and unearned. That's it.
And the issue that I have with and like the reason why the master, like you're not going to be a master meme is a meme is because if you watch the movies in sequence without watching the Clone Wars, this is what happens. You watch AOTC, he's a child still. He's still a Padawan.
Gets his ass kicked pretty much every turn he fucks up.
Yeah. He fucks up as much as humanly possible in that whole movie, gets his arm cut off, almost gets Obi-Wan Kenobi killed, has to be saved by Yoda, then illegally marries somebody else, and then we go on to episode 3, and he's like, Palpatine said you have to make me a master. And they're like, we're not going to do that. So, and then he gets pissed. When everybody watching that movie is like, you probably shouldn't be a master. Like, the last time we saw you, you got your arm cut off, you almost killed a Jedi Master, and you put the life of the Jedi Grandmaster at risk, and then you married a senator.
You broke the cardinal rule of the order.
Yeah.
You have outside attachments that consist of marrying people and fucking them.
Yeah, and like, what about all of that says to me that you should be a master? When really, after you watch the Clone Wars, his qualifications to be a master increase tenfold. You get to see everything that Anakin did to feel like he had earned that title. So when he goes into that room, he's not just like, Palpatine says you have to make me a master. He's like, look at what I've done.
Like, this guy's a fucking hero.
Order. Yeah, like, it puts so much more weight behind that anger. Because when you see it just in the movies, you're like, what? You fucking kill Count Dooku and now all of a sudden you want to be a master? Like, that's
the other one they gave me, Nick. Like, well, what about when he cut off Dooku's head? He didn't want to do it.
He literally
He's like, I can't do this shit. And Homeboy's like, just fucking do it. You're going to do what the Chancellor says. He didn't do it because he's evil or he was feeling the dark side. He did it because Homeboy, the leader of the Republic, said, kill him.
Yeah.
Okay, boss. I mean, what do you want a general to say to the president? All right.
Yeah. I mean, his instinct was correct. Like, in that moment when he's sitting there with Dooku, no hands on his knees,
he had him beat.
He's like, it's over. I don't have to do this. And that was the correct instinct. And then he gets pushed over the edge by Palpatine. So I don't even blame.
No.
Like that's not on him. Like,
no, he was being commanded by his superior. I mean, let's be real. I mean, the Chancellor is no different than our president. They are the chief of the fucking armed forces, and he was a general. So that's like, I hate going down this road because I mean, we sound like broken records, and I love the people like hearing it, but I think today, thanks to Nick, as usual, he did a much better job explaining my problems. Like, it's not like I have rots hanging on a dartboard and I fucking take shits on it every day. It doesn't really get me that upset. All I have said, as someone like a lot of you that are all hyped up about the prequels, I too was mega hyped about the prequels. I was just a different age, different mental maturity, and it was disappointing. Just like some of you were disappointed as myself with the sequel trilogy. You got to get used to that type of shit. Sometimes you build up these expectations and you got to be able to handle them when they're not met. I didn't handle them too well with the prequels. So much so that I banned myself from Star Wars for years until Disney bought it. But I'm there. I've gotten over it. It really isn't a complete tire fire type of movie. But anyone that watched it as a fully functioning adult that knows the story of Star Wars, that see who Anakin became, I can't agree with you that you think his turn was handled expertly in Revenge of the Sith. I think it's a joke. It's a joke. Okay? That's it. Yeah, be mad. That's what I'm saying. Like, I completely get it. I know there is a large swath of you that were probably 10 or younger, early teens, if that look at ROTS as the second coming of ESB. I have one major problem, and the reason it hurts so much is because that the whole movie's goal was to show us how this fucking hero could turn into a guy that commits galactic genocide. And I don't know how we get that out of being told to cut off someone's head, having a bad dream, and then learning about a Sith anecdote from the Chancellor. Like, when did Anakin ever go? Oh, did Anakin ever go like, oh yeah, hell yeah, dude. Yeah, dark side shit, let me in. I'll do anything. No, he was always looking at him like, what the fuck's this creep talking about? I'm going to go tell on him. And he does. Like, come on, people. When did Anakin ever show any hint of it dabbling with the dark side in Revenge of the Sith? Never. Never. Not until he rises as Lord Vader and doesn't speak another line until Mustafar. Thank you. Okay? You're welcome, everybody. All right. Thanks, B. Matt. I love it. Whew, that's good stuff. Oh, see, this is like, fuck current events. It really is. It's all about special topics. We should just start doing anything beyond the Dune C does. We'll just do it the next week. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Kudos to them, by the way. Another great, they gave us a nice little shout out, a nice little Thanksgiving post they made. The creativity behind Connor is uncanny. Like they have a quality production over there. I'm still going to say Nick and I are probably better to listen to because I'm a dickhead. But production-wise, I 100% get why they're blowing up. I mean, they're making like actual content that you would probably want from Lucasfilm, so good for them. Okay, moving on here. Darth Vader's legacy in Ahsoka. I don't know if we really care about that.
Yeah, I mean, the Darth Vader's legacy in Ahsoka is like, I mean, I don't think that was the key point of any of
this was the one where you and I, we figured this out. We're like, no, yeah, I mean, listen, she learned a valuable lesson that it's okay that she was trained by a soon-to-be mass murderer. He also did some good things. So I think that's what she's saying there. Natasha, who played Sabine, kind of talked about how, Ahsoka originally had issues training Sabine because Sabine reminded her so much of Anakin. And that warrior mentality kind of flying off the handle. A few more quotes here that I do think are relevant. Dave did touch on the new galaxy, Nick, and that he doesn't necessarily want to close it off now that it's been open. And I think that's something you've really been kind of itching for here. So he says, if they were in the Star Wars galaxy, the old Star Wars galaxy that we know, I think somebody would have found them. There's too many starships, too many people traveling. You get a signal out, and I think you could have found them, and you could found them if they wanted to be found. I had to really throw them far afield. So he was talking about why he moved Ezra and Thrawn so far off the fucking map. But like I said, that this broader universe will factor in the future Mandoverse timelines, as we've all correctly speculated, especially if we get Ahsoka Season 2. Naturally, you have to include it. So Dave says, I'm setting up what seems to be a larger conflict with the Imperial Remnant. That conflict can't just mirror what we've seen before. It has to take on a different shape. It can't just be the Empire versus what looks like the Rebellion or even the Republic. It has to be visually different. It sounds like Dave Filoni has been listening to Matt and Nick on the SWTS, right? What did we say? We're like, we can't just have bad guys versus good guys. This is where it's like, all right, bring in Abeloth. Bring in some crazy fucking Force God shit from another universe. Bring in a whole other faction from another universe that could kind of convince our known galaxy fucks to work together, right? Did we not speak this into existence?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was what we directly talked about when we talked about our wants for Ahsoka Season 2 / what the potential crossover movie could look like is really understanding how these events that are happening in this series and in this crossover film are going to have a lasting effect on the galaxy. And the way that happens is through third party intervention. Like, every conflict that we've ever seen from Star Wars in a visual medium has been some version of like Republic versus Empire. I mean, we got the Republic versus the CIS. Then we got the Rebellion versus the Empire. Then we got the First Order versus the Resistance.
It's always political factions is all Star Wars is.
And I think that this is kind of what he's hinting at now is like what we're going to see now is not just going to be a rehash of what's already been rehashed 3 times over. Like, we're going to get something that's a shakeup and a real clear difference in terms of the content that we've seen in the past. So I'm glad that he did address that, and it does give me a little bit more hope that what we're going to get in this crossover or in Ahsoka season 2 is not going to just be like Thrawn's guys versus the New Republic.
That's kind of what we were saying. I think you led that. You're like, we've done this. Like this is Star Wars since the dawn of Star Wars. It's the same shit, different era. Really, different age, I guess, what they're called now. Or are they back to eras? Who fucking cares? But either way, it really is. It's a cycle we all know and love. But I do like hearing this from the new CCO at Lucasfilm, where he's essentially saying, like, we get it. We can't just do Empire versus good guys again. Bad guys versus good guys. What do you think he means visually different? I mean, could we be battling in the other galaxy, or is this hinting at a potential new being, new race, new aliens?
Yeah, I mean, I think that visually different, it kind of harkens back to what we were talking about, where like the visuals of the battle have always been like bad guy ships, good guy ships, fight.
Yeah, TIE fighters, X-Wings, essentially.
Yeah, like bad guy ground units, good guy ground units, fight. And then that was kind of where things ended, you know, like you throw in those, like you put those in a pot, you mix in a couple of Jedi or Force users, and then
you have a Star Wars trilogy.
That's been your formula for Star Wars for 40 years up to this point. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if anything, it's a proven formula that even though has not like recently has been criticized for its storytelling, has been a moneymaker. Let's be real. Every movie that Star Wars put out in the Skywalker trilogy under Disney made over $1 billion. So like, you can't argue with the financial success of that. What you can't argue with is the effective storytelling of that, especially now that it's been seen 3 times over. So what I think this means is like, we are going to get a very different visual representation of evil potentially in this new story that they're going to tell. Like,
thought of something that could be right in front of our faces that would be visually different. Thrawn's or the Great Mother's caskets.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
That would take a very different visual tenor, for sure.
Especially if they're truly the Night Sister zombie warriors that we know from the Clone Wars SWTS, the video game. I mean, they're ratty ass looking like horror characters. I mean, they look awful. I mean, they look like dead fucking banshees, essentially. Green eyes, crazy stuff. Yeah, so I dig it. I dig it because as we were saying, I mean, okay, we're just going to have angular remnant ships going against more rounded Republic ships, something we've been seeing for the past 2 trilogies at this timeline, and what we'll see again in the future trilogy after the Mandoverse, right? Because, I mean, First Order, angular ships, TIE fighters, Resistance, circular ships, A-Wings, X-Wings. It's literally all the same stuff. So I hope it's even more visually different than just a potential Night Sister zombie army or whatever the fuck's going on there. I would like something completely bonkers, as we have speculated, either it being Abeloth or Balin truly fucking with the Force to the point where it jacks the universe. I dig it, though. It's nice to hear that it's not just going to be retread of angle ships versus round ships again.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of the gods of Mortis and potentially the unleashing of Abeloth, Dave did touch on Ray Stevenson, his untimely passing. He just really talked about how Ray was the fucking man. But he did discuss, we asked this too. It's like, well, how deep into the shit can you get in Star Wars TV? And when we saw those gods of Mortis, we're like, well, I guess pretty fucking deep. But Dave goes on to explain, like, hey, I understand that was iffy, but here's what I have to say. I know it's a very specific group of people that would even know what those statues are. You know who he's talking about, right?
Us.
Yeah, the old fanboy factions out there. But I thought it was an exciting image, And it does give you the shape of what Balin is after. And he makes a point. I mean, even if you're just a Star Wars dope, you see that closing shot and you're like, okay, well, he's on these big fucking statues and they're pointing at a light in the distance. So that must be pretty special. And it seems ancient. It could have some mysticism wrapped around it. So, it worked out. It's not like people tried to burn down the franchise because they saw the gods of Mortis and didn't know who they were.
If anything, if you got to that point in the series, and like I say, if you got to that point in the series, because the question was never whether it was good to bring the gods of Mortis, and the question was around like, if we're looking to capture a new audience, or if we're looking to recapture a lapsed audience, like, is this the method to do it? So, like, I'm just putting that out there because that's what I mean by if you got to this point in the series. So if you got to that point in Ahsoka, all that does is present questions in your mind. Like, what are these big statues? What's it pointing to? What does this mean? And like, typically when you do that in a property, and like it garners more investment. Yeah,
I was
going to
say that's a good thing, right? Like you've scratched people's curiosity, so they're going to want to invest more into whatever you are, and they're going to see what's coming next.
Exactly. The primary question is, did you get them there the right way? Like, was this the right group of characters to bring them there, or was it too niche of an entrance, and now the people who did get to the end probably already knew what was going on? Because
I know what you're saying now. You're essentially saying, like, was Ahsoka even too niche that even the casuals might not have made it to that end, and it was mostly people like you and I anyways making it to the end.
Exactly. Right. Like, if your entire goal, like, I don't know what their goal was with Ahsoka. That's something that we don't know. But usually when you're putting out content, you have a goal behind it. And if the goal with Ahsoka was, we're trying to acquire new audiences and introduce them to this deep cut Star Wars lore, you may not have done that. But what you did do very well was expose an audience that is familiar with the characters in Ahsoka, so like familiar with the lore of Rebels, familiar with the lore of Clone Wars. You introduced them to, the next branch of Star Wars storytelling very effectively. I'll say it that way. But it's yet to be seen if Ahsoka was an effective vehicle to introduce new audiences to these concepts.
I mean, it's a good point. The numbers clearly weren't great, but it was also a bit kneecapped. I mean, it was Ahsoka to start, the strike, so no one could promote it. I mean, literally, like the last promo you got involving the team that made it was Star Wars Celebration way back in fucking April. So it'll be interesting to see if articles like this and just the stars on social media pounding that, if there will be an uptick in Ahsoka viewership on the back end. Sticking with Balin here, Dave, he realized what we all realized. He's like, listen, Balin's story clearly isn't over, even though Ray Stevenson has moved on. But this was kind of funny too. And Nick and I, this is kind of how we describe Balin, but it's always fun hearing it from the creator here. So here's Dave on Balin. He's a person that survived the Clone Wars, that was trained in the waxing waning days of the Jedi Knights, just like Anakin. He saw his order, his way of life fall apart, and he's basically deemed it a failure. That way did not work. That it's not something worth resurrecting, which is why he tells his apprentice Shin, I didn't teach you to be a Jedi. I taught you to be something more. He's tried to take these teachings that he learned as a young person and create his own way of being, and he's looked at the cycle of things and said, enough with this. If I have this power, I should wield it. I should be the one making decisions, which a lot of people with power decide that's the way to go. He's also very certain that what he's doing now is the right thing. Obviously, there's a story there. We're in a wait and see pattern at this point, but I'm glad the conversation is about Ray and how great he was. I used to have many debates with him and say, Ray, you're the villain here. And he'd be like, I don't think so. I was like, I know you don't think so, but you are. I love that you're playing it like you're not. which is exactly the way Balin thinks. So clearly we nailed our analysis of Balin to a T, right? We're like, he's a bad guy, but he doesn't think he's a bad guy because he thinks what he's doing is righteous.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm surprised about is that he just straight up came out and said, if I have this power, I should wield it. I should be the one making decisions.
So what he's saying is Balin essentially wants to become the father. Like he wants to be the champion of the Force and be the chosen one, maybe, like pick up to where, maybe he feels like, hey, Anakin didn't do what he's supposed to do. Now I'm going to go do it this way.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so surprised that he said it, because I don't think that up to where we are in the storytelling around Balin's character right now, that this was that this was clear that that's what he was doing. I think that there was still a lot of ambiguity in what his journey was. I
mean, Nick, he physically said, I need to destroy the beginning. I need to end the cycle. And, we took those terms of like, he wants to just either end the Force, blow this place up. And like you're saying, Dave has pretty much put it out there that he wants to become the wielder of the Force. Capital T, capital H, capital E, like the former father.
Like he wants to be the arbiter of how the Force is used and who it's given to, which is an interesting storyline to tell. But like the fact that he kind of essentially gave that plot point away for free.
Abeloth.
Seems a little odd that like he was just. But I mean, like the Abeloth thing could still happen because like
that could be the power he's talking about. Like he he's or like I think what you're gonna say, he's being influenced through the Force by a nefarious actor that's actually manipulating him, even though he thinks he's just following this. But you are right. I mean, when you think about what Dave's saying here, like, hey, he learned this shit as a Jedi Knight. Obviously, they're teaching him about Peridia, the Mortis gods. So he clearly knew what he's looking for. So he could, as Dave is saying, just be going there to try to become a keeper of the Force, the champion of the Force himself, or as we're hoping, it's all still a ruse by a much more evil Force power that is trying to be unleashed back into the universe. Blah, blah, blah. Ahsoka's next steps. Nothing set in stone yet, all right, in terms of Ahsoka Season 2. Clearly, Dave's movie is still intact, so we know we're going to see Ahsoka in that, more than likely. As Nick and I talked, we really need a second season. I know he's not a huge fan of Tic-Tac-Toe Thrawn, but I think to really flesh out this Mandoverse to the point where we are going to have a big endgame type of movie, we need more time. We need more Ahsoka. Mm-hmm. We need our fourth season of Mando at minimum. I mean, if you think about it, Nick, we're only looking at two guaranteed shows, Skeleton Crew and Mando S4.
And Mando. Yep.
That's the only story left to tell before the big movie, and I don't think we're there. We're not there. So he's going to need a second season.
You need, like, we're not even to the point to where the stakes are set yet.
Correct.
Like we need to at least get to the point to where like these are the stakes, and like to really understand what's on the line. Because like right now, the way things ended is like, yeah, Thrawn's there. Like Thrawn is back in the galaxy. In a busted ass
ship with decimated forces.
Yeah, with no forces, with whatever is hidden within the the cargo bay of the Chimera, which we assume is some sort of like ultra like powerful, fighting
like
force.
A dark magic army, I think is what we were saying it could be.
Yeah. But like we don't even have the stakes set yet. So like we have to get to a point for the movie that like we understand what's at fucking stake.
That's what I mean.
You can't launch a movie and be like, okay, well, Thrawn's back, so let's fucking fill in all of the shit that needs to happen before the fight happens, and do the fight, and do the aftermath.
Yeah, I mean, like, you got to see the remnant reform under Thrawn, and if there's any power struggles there, you got to see how the New Republic reacts. Is Mon going to have to, fight Xiono or this, that, and the other thing. What the fuck is Ezra going to be doing? Is he going to be focused on stopping Thrawn or getting Sabine and Ahsoka back? And oh, by the way, they're in a different galaxy. How you going to explain them coming back if we just jump right to a movie? So I really hope we get a second Ahsoka. We better get Mando S4. I always thought we were going to get 8 seasons of Mando, but I guess people are tuning out of that now too, so that's probably going to end. But there's a lot of work left to do in this Mandoverse before we get to Dave's movies. But now that the strikes are over, we're at least going to be getting some insights into all that stuff. All right. Up next, we have Daisy Ridley. She's out pimping a new movie, The Marsh King's Daughter. I believe it's on streamers. She was talking to Collider, Nick, and she essentially explained, like, dude, I didn't even know that I was going to be involved in a new movie. It was like a few days before we announced it at Celebration. So I think she's essentially explaining to him, like, hey, when I saw you at Cannes, I wasn't trying to lie to you or anything. I really didn't know if I was going to be.
I don't know.
If I was going to be back in Star Wars. But what she does say here that has like some meat to it is she is. I guess I could read. I'll get down to the end because I summarized what she said before, but. Talking about Celebration, she's like, I was shitting myself before I went on stage because no one knew I was going to that. No one knew I was going to Celebration, bar like Kathy, and there were a couple of people. I was so nervous. Oh my God. It was such a wonderful reception. I'm very excited. The story is really cool. I'm waiting to read a script because obviously I don't have any other updates. It's not what I expected, but I'm very excited. So the story, she knows the story, and she's telling us that it's not what she expected, but she's excited about it. I'm not quite sure how to parse that out.
Yeah, I mean, you would imagine that the expectation would be like, I am like Rey is the new, Force user in the galaxy and is going to start to reform some sort of order. I mean, I think that that's what the general expectation is, or at least like that's what most people would think is the story is like, okay, I'm gonna take up the mantle of what I think should be done here, especially the way that it ended with like her having the texts from the tree, with her having the, now communed with the most powerful Force entities to ever exist to take out one of the most powerful dark side entities to ever exist. Like you would think that her now life mission would be like, all right, like let's get fucking rolling again. Like let's start moving again. So I am interested to see like what this direction is, because it honestly seemed like a pretty straightforward start.
I know. It's like, who knows? She could just be blowing smoke up this guy's ass, but she, specifically said it's not what I expected. So I don't know. I mean, we could go all over the place with that. I mean, is Ben coming back in ghost form and working with her? Is Finn going to be there? I mean, is she going to be aged enough that there's been decades that have passed since Tross? I think these are all things that might be unexpected to her. I don't know. I was kind of intrigued by that. And the other thing, Nick, she also went on, because all they announced is like, hey, yeah, Daisy's going to have this movie. James Mangold's doing this one. Dave's doing that one. Daisy now, she's saying, I know the storyline for one film. That's not to say that that's all it is, but that's what I was told about. And I imagine it will be the next film, I think. I mean, again, I don't know post-strikes and everything, how quickly everything will start up again. But yes, so far, I know the story of one film, and I think people will be very excited. I think there's multiple ways to take this. Yep. She's either talking about the 3 announced movies, and she only knows the story about the ones she's involved in, or she's heard that whatever she's involved in could potentially be more than one film. Is that what you're getting, or was it clearer to you?
Yeah. To me, I definitely think that those are the 2 ways to interpret it. And to me, I almost think it's straying towards the latter, like towards, I know the story for this one, the first one, not sure what the story is for the second one yet. Like she is expecting that that she will be in another one. after the one that we already know
it's
about.
weird, but I think one thing we can definitely take from this is that it is going to be the first movie out once they get cracking on it. I really think that's what when she says, and I imagine it will be the next film. I think she's actually talking about the next film to actually hit fucking theaters.
To release,
which is going to be crazy because she was in the last one that was in theaters many, many years ago at this point in time. I mean, what are we at? We're up to 5 years now. 4 years.
4 years. 2019. Yeah,
Holy shit! That is crazy. If you think about that, people. They were at a 2-year cadence. We would have already seen 2 more Star Wars movies if the shit didn't get all fucked up. That is wild.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. But I mean, what's interesting is like we obviously know that there's been a writing change on the Rey movie.
Stephen Knight has taken it over from Damon Lindelof.
Yes. And we know that the director stayed on. So what's really interesting here is what are they like? How are they going to refresh things? Because up until this point in Star Wars, we just talked about how the 3 trilogies have essentially told versions of the same story 3 different times. And you know, like what are you going to do to shake it up? Like, how are you going to change the dynamic that has become expected for Star Wars?
So Nick, is this the outside force movie finally? Not
I would
force,
so.
but like the Vong or one of these motherfuckers finally coming in and giving our galaxy's good guys a new problem to deal with?
I think so. And like, as fucked up as this may sound, but like the Filoni stuff, like what Dave is doing with this new galaxy, introducing a new galaxy, may be like the test run for what is to come in the next big movie. You know, like we've never had an outside galaxy introduced in Star Wars before. We've never even had entities from the unknown regions really make their way into a live action Star Wars movie until the end of TROS. And like, and those forces that we saw from the unknown region weren't even unknown region forces. It was just Palpatine that happened to make his way there. Like the fact that we now have an entire new galaxy introduced that could bring in a ton of outside influence into the known galaxy would be really interesting if that's how they decided to treat the new movie with Daisy in it. So like, you know, stuff like the Yuuzhan Vong, like people have been like, when are the Vong going to come in?
Hey,
like
Nick,
the opportunity is now there.
Was the Vong force sensitive, or did they have some sort of magic? Like, why were they so unstoppable?
I do believe that they had.
I think another way to go with this, with the Rey movie, if it's not an outside alien force, some force that has mastered the dark side. Like we get away from the political machinations of Star Wars, and it's literally all the mystical shit in this movie, where it is truly her new order in the light versus this dark order that either existed in another universe and made it here, or that has been actually doing kind of Palpatine type of shit and has been waiting its time, biding its time, building up power, and now it's ready to attack. I don't want it to be just like we're talking about the Mandoverse. So I'm with alien force coming in or some sort of mystical force fucking with Rey. I don't want it to be traditional Star Wars good guys and girls versus traditional Star Wars bad girls and boys.
Yeah, I mean the Vong, like if you're gonna introduce a potential,
Bat's saying they could block the force, if anything.
They couldn't block it; they were immune to it. So like they like force a bit, like they were just straight up immune to force.
Like their midichlorians could kick other midichlorians' asses, essentially.
So the thing is I don't think they had midichlorians. Like if you were looking at it in terms of a like in universe, like the force is the force because everything in this known galaxy has some level of midichlorian in it. They had none. They had no force presence. They couldn't be sensed by the Jedi. They were unaffected by most force powers because they didn't, like the assumption was they didn't have the midichlorians in them to be affected by it. So like almost like where Toydarians are immune to like
mind
the mind trick.
Okay,
they
that
were
makes
immune
sense.
to almost everything.
Got you.
So
right.
yeah, I think the only thing that they weren't immune to was like the physical manifestation of like force push. Like if you because they weren't, because that didn't affect their body. That was just like
you're affecting
you're
affecting the midichlorians in the air, right?
Yeah, something
the ones
like
that are
but
around us, binding us, surrounding us.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what force powers they were affected.
We don't need to know the inside and out. I think what we need to know is this would be fun. Okay, where we have an established Star Wars hero of the light side who's a fake Skywalker. That doesn't matter. But it would be neat. It would be something fresh, something new, something from the books that you all love. So I'm down for it. All right. Speaking of shit we should get down for in 2024. Now, we kind of went through this a week or two ago where I was just using logic and sound thought in real life and saying, hey, I think we'll be lucky to get 2 live action Star Wars in 2024. The first being Skeleton Crew because it should have came out this year. Second being The Acolyte because I believe it was done with principal and mostly in post when the strikes happened. We talked about how Andor didn't even finish principal, so I felt like that one didn't really have a chance for 2024. Well, the dorks over at Empire are saying something different. Okay? We got a snippet from, I think it's their January 2024 issue of Empire that talks about the Disney Plus slate in 2024. And Nick, sure enough, they're throwing Andor in there as a done deal alongside Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. So here's what I assume happened then. When the strikes came down, Writer and SAG, they took what they had, or like at a certain point, they took what they had and they sent it to post. And they were like, you guys fucking do everything you can on this and get it to the point to where it's as ready as it can be for when we restart. That's the only thing that I can think of for it to be able to both finish filming and go through post and pickups and then also be ready in less than a year.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Andor season 2 saw the light of day in 2024. That's the one I'm just highly skeptical of. I think Skeleton Crew 100%. I mean, we should be watching it probably today or tomorrow, whenever the fuck they release Star Wars now. So that one I could see dropping as early as February, March of 2024. Acolyte, I could see being kind of like the Ahsoka show in 23, where it comes out in that early fall period. I just don't, especially with Bad Batch season 3 scheduled. I don't know. And as Nick said, I just don't think it's physically possible to finish principal, get through all of post, and have an 8-10 episode show ready to rock by this time next year. It seems insurmountable to me.
Yeah. I mean, it would make more sense if everything was shot sequentially. Like if you're filming, like we're going to do all of episode 1, but we're going to do all of episode 2. That doesn't happen,
right? I mean,
that's not how they film things. They
shoot scenes and based on budgets and where they're traveling at that point in time. I mean, a lot of shows, they may film the end before the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's why they get paid a ton of money, because acting is very, very difficult. It actually is if you want to be good, but sometimes when they talk about like it's being a doctor or something that you're actually saving lives, it's like, all right, people, calm down. I love I love creatives, I love artists, but let's be real. You're literally playing pretend. So yeah, there you go. I would take Bad Batch S3, Skeleton Crew, an Acolyte to the bank for 2024. Andor, I think that's a pipe dream.
It would be super surprising if Andor
I don't think they've done 4 Star Wars shows in a year's time either. It's usually 2 or 3. Not that.
It's yeah.
Well, no, I'm a liar, because we had Tales and Visions and Bad Batch and Mando and Ahsoka. So we did have 5 this year in 23. Yeah. Oh well, hey. Shit's back up and running. Just means I get to stay up late or get up early to make content for 2 people. I'm excited. All right, it is time for this episode's special topic. I know you all have been patiently waiting to see our custom graphics. We are ranking the BOKKEN Jedi. All right, right now we're looking at my deck. Nick also has a deck. I'll give you a tease. We're pretty spot on. Our back ends and our front ends, there's a little bit of variety, but the middle, we pretty much we're thinking the exact same Jedis. But just real quick, if anyone needs setup for this, what is a BOKKEN Jedi? All right, we learned this in Ahsoka from Baylan Skoll. A BOKKEN Jedi is any Jedi trained after Order 66, meaning they were not trained at the temple. All right, I will tell you there are some Jedi here that were trained in a temple, but not the temple. We are running with them as being BOKKEN, although you probably could argue that, hey, they're training under Luke Skywalker at a temple, but no, we're going with Baylan's definition. Any Jedi trained after Order 66. All right, and there are 12 of them, and a lot of them come from comics. So if you haven't been reading the comics, you're probably like, all right, whatever you guys say. Luckily, I'm familiar with all these Jedi from the comics because I do read a little bit because they have pictures and not words. All right. So, coming in at number 12 on Matt's list, I have a Jedi named Vo. All right, for those of you that don't know, Vo was one of Luke's first disciples at his new temple. Vo was very much like Sabine Wren in that she did not have a natural affinity for the Force. But Vo, when Kyla or Ben went a little goofy, she was also the one ready to kind of get down the brass tacks and take care of business. But because she wasn't very skilled and a little off the handle, I have placed Vo at number 12.
Yeah, I was familiar with
Actually,
Vo.
sorry, Nick, this is your number 12. So
I would say that.
Pretend Nick said that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my number 12 was Vo. Vo was from the Rise of Kylo Ren comic.
Correct. It was like a
series
four-issue miniseries. Yep.
Yeah, so read that when it released, and the reason it's like I didn't go back and read them. I know that like my bottom 3 essentially are from this comic run. Vo was, to my knowledge, the first one killed when. As far as I remember, she was one of the first ones to get killed.
No,
when Ben turned.
she did not survive Ben's onslaught. She went with not. Ty and Hennix as like the last 3 to try and fully stop him after he fucked everything up. But yeah, she didn't make it.
Yeah. So she was the first of those 3 to get whacked. So I was like, okay, you're all right. You're the last. That makes one. Sense. You're number 12.
All right. Well, let me repeat. Now I'll do my number 12. What a fucking idiot. Okay, my number 12, oh man, I'm starting to get the HIV, is Hennix, another one of Luke's students. And the reason I made him 12, Nick, is because this guy was a bum. All right, a complete bum. All he cared about was puzzles and using the Force to solve puzzles, which led him to gravitate towards holocrons and trying to get them open. So to me, he was, he's a little aloof, wasn't really focusing on all aspects of the Force. He just seemed kind of goofy and out there. So that's why I put him at 12. All right, now that I'm on my deck, I'm going to go to my 11. All right, does that make sense? Dan the Man, welcome back. How's it going? Okay. There she is. I had Vo at 11 for many of the same reasons. Like she just wasn't naturally gifted. And as Nick said, because of that and her willingness to go after Ben and kind of fight him with zero caution, she takes my 11 spot for essentially just sacrificing her body. Yeah, she just like literally like the movie scene where you like some like third-rate character jumps at the main character and just gets like instantly annihilated. It's kind of what happens to Vo when it comes down. Hey, real quick, Dan the Man has a character that I would be sweet to see in the Rey movie, Darth Talon. Darth Talon was supposed to be, along with Maul, the big bad of the sequels, according to George Lucas. So, Dan the Man, I would not be. Hey, listen, a red and black Twi'lek, please. I don't know if my heart could handle that. I would love Talon to be in live action.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a good addition. I think that she was a super interesting character for sure, and I think that they could use her to good effect.
All right, so Nick's number 11 is Ty.
Ty, and again, like for me, Ty and Hennix, you can probably like flip, like those are interchangeable. But the way that you could look at Ty, Hennix, and Vo as as people who haven't read this comic run is like these were like three close friends of Ben during their time at the Jedi.
They would have been in the same class, exactly, right? Like freshmen together, something like that.
Yeah. So like they came up together, they learned together. Ben was obviously the most talented prospect out of all of them, coming from the Skywalker lineage. And then when shit fell apart, it kind of fell to these three, Ty, Hennix, and Vo, to like try to be the ones to stop him from destroying the whole order. And eventually what happens is like they all like come at him in their own way and they all get killed. Ty was probably the most gifted fighter of all three of them.
I think he was the closest to Ben as well.
Yeah, he was like Ben. I think he was the last one to die. But he like falls to Ben as well pretty easily. He comes in at my number 11, but like I said, him and Hennix kind of can flip between the two. But yeah, like he gets cut down by Ben, as all of the other Padawans and trainees at Luke's order did.
He kind of looks like the Lex Luthor of Star Wars too.
He does. Yeah. Very, very bald.
If you're on the live stream, we have a graphic of Ty up. Yeah, he's very Lexy looking. All right, Nick, since we're on you and we already know my 11, let's go to your 10.
My 10 is
there
Hennix. Is Hennix. Yeah. So I guess the reason for me, the reason why I put Hennix there is like he does look cooler. He's a Quarren, I believe, right? He's a Quarren Jedi, which obviously we didn't see much of, but he was very in tune with the Force. I guess I'll put it that way, which is why I like ranked him slightly higher. It's like in these.
Well, you're right. He's kind of like a Force dork.
Yeah, like if there was anybody out there who was going to form into like a very formidable Jedi, if given enough time and training, it probably would have been Hennix, just because of his deep connection to the Force. Like you were saying, like he was always interested in learning secrets of the Force through holocrons and connecting with the living Force as much as he could. He wasn't as focused on like the combat aspects of the Force. So I just thought that like if you're gonna rank these three, like it's hard because they all essentially die within 3 days of each other and they all get killed by the same person. So like maybe in my mind, like Hennix had the most potential to be a formidable Jedi.
Fair enough. So I mean, like I said, Nick and I, our ends and fronts are mixed. So my 10 is Ty. And the reason Ty made 10 on my list is because of what I just said a few minutes ago. He and Ben were the closest. He also was skilled. And he really, out of all three of these BOKKEN Jedi, he tried his damnedest to talk Ben off the ledge. Like he was kind of the last line of peace before they realized, like, all right, we're just going to have to start swinging sabers. So Ty, to me, Nick, as a BOKKEN, at least one of Luke's BOKKEN, he seemed the most well-rounded. You know what I mean? Like he was kind of your middle, your average guy. He was average at everything instead of excelling at one or the other.
Yeah, he was like a very prototypical Jedi trainee. Like from, even if you went back to like the days of the Grand Republic.
Yeah, exactly.
They would, like he would be like in boots on the ground, Jedi Knight, eventually may work his way up to master, but like I didn't think that Ty had it in him to be like, if you're comparing it to the Grand Republic, he would have never been on the council. Like he would have been a Jedi Master. He would have trained other Jedi, but he would have never made his way up into the
kind of like a Qui-Gon, then, you know?
Yeah. Qui-Gon Jinn,
like a master, but not to sit on the politics and make policy.
Exactly. Yeah. Like he would be like the prototypical master to like bring a Jedi from Padawan to Knight and graduate them through to to the full status of master.
I like what Dan the Man's saying here. What if we got a Hutt Jedi or a Gungan Jedi?
A Hutt Jedi would be the most interesting thing in the world to watch.
That would be fucking awesome.
Like just to see how they and like just to see how they would adapt that. Like how does he fight? How does he move around?
Yeah, right. They'd have to just be Force experts because it's not you know, they could, I don't know, maybe they get on an advanced repulsor sled that they can control with the Force, and it has lightsabers coming out the sides of it like a hacksaw or a chainsaw. I like the way you think, Dan the Man. That's a crazy ass visual. All right. Going to my number 9 here in the ranking our BOKKEN Jedi. Enyo. All right, this one obviously I had to do some research on because it comes from a book. We all know I don't read words and shit. But when I read it, I was like, well, hell, knowing my fetish with Twi'leks, and she had Force powers and helped Luke train other Jedi, Enyo takes number 9. So apparently, Nick, she was a Force-sensitive Twi'lek that worked with Luke at his temple on Ossus, and she actually trained some of the younglings. Her fate is unknown, but most people are saying she too died in Ben's uprising at the temple. Yeah,
we're 100% aligned.
Okay, so you're
on this one. Mine was also. I also had Enyo at 9.
We're a
it was
dyad.
For the reasons that you laid out. We're right in line.
Fucking
we
dyad,
can feel
dude.
The power of the
Watch
Force.
out, Palpatine's gonna come here and suck our life essence out.
Right. But yeah, I mean, the real thing that pushed Enyo over the top for me was like she had already graduated to the point of like training. Yeah. Like she's training other people.
Okay. That's kind of how I thought. Well, you know, obviously my creepy obsession with Twi'lek women helped a little bit, but I'm with you. It's like, hey, she was already maybe not a master, but at least a knight and able to train Padawans. All right, so we'll go to Nick's 8 here.
Yes, my 8 is Verla, which is like, again, like not somebody that I knew a ton about.
I'm fairly fresh on her because I've been reading the Star Wars comic where she just popped up. It might have been a year or two ago, but she could have killed Luke Skywalker. I'll just put it that. She had him trapped, dead to rights. Thought he was an Inquisitor because her former master got hunted down by Inquisitors. She was hunted down by Inquisitors. So Nick, I wouldn't say she was a full-on Jedi Knight, but she was potent enough in the Force that she was constantly being hunted down by the Inquisitorius, so much so that her paranoia almost led her to murder Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, so like I remembered the Luke stuff, and then just like reading about her background and like, you know, trained as trained as a Jedi trainee, like was in the Order for a short period of time before its fall, and then, like you said, kind of remained a thorn in the side of the Inquisitorius throughout the time between ROTS and A New Hope. So the fact that she had like formal Jedi training under, I mean, like
I don't think it was when the Order existed, but she was trained from
trained from somebody
a classical Jedi, which so was Luke. So I mean, she still fits the BOKKEN classification.
Yes. So she's in that. She has more formal training than the others. Like. You know, coming from like directly from somebody who was in the Grand Republic, who was in the Jedi Order, who was imparting that wisdom over to her. I feel like that gives her a leg up, like having survived like through the aftermath of Order 66 and like survived in that time period where like everybody who was Force sensitive was being hunted, whether it was to be recruited to the Inquisitorius or killed once they found out that they were Jedi sympathizers or whatever. So for her to like survive as long as she did in the time period that she did definitely makes her a formidable.
No, I'm 100%. And really, for me, the other one was she bested a Skywalker. I mean, he's still dopey Luke. I mean, we're talking in between Empire and Return of the Jedi Luke, so he's still a little goofy, but she had him dead. I mean, I believe she trapped him in a submersible prison and essentially was drowning him. He wasn't getting out.
Yeah.
All right, that was your 8. I think this is where we link up. Yeah. So I was Verla too. I pretty much explained why I picked it. So I guess it's time to go to 7. But I think we're still linked here. So number 7 in my BOKKEN Jedi ranking is Sabine Wren.
We are aligned.
Yeah, she's 7. I like the character, so I wanted her to be not in the double digits. But we just kind of saw her Jedi prowess. We heard about it from Hu Yang. She was a 0. I mean, just not good at it. But as we saw with the finale and her kind of coming to grips with this shit, she is starting to open up to it and could be quite skilled, especially when you factor in her Mandalorian background. So that's why I put her at 7. She's, not quite super strong in the Force, but her potential, I feel, was greater than the ones we just listed. Because of her Mandalorian roots, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like we're definitely aligned there in terms of like the reasons for putting her there. Like, she doesn't have the natural ability that even some of the people under her do. Like the people that are lower.
She's
in the
done
ranks,
way more important things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she has good people at her side to help bring her along in her journey with Ezra and with Ahsoka. She has the ability to really understand like what her goals are to become a more complete Jedi. And she's already, just within the span of Ahsoka season 1, kind of like dedicated herself more to her training, more to understanding the path to becoming a Jedi, and like following through with what Ahsoka and potentially Ezra will be teaching her moving forward. So I think like that's why she jumps up above some of the other ones that we listed below her, even though her skill set is a little less than those.
The potential factor was great.
Yes.
All right, so Nick's number 6 is Leia Organa Skywalker.
Indeed. So this is where it gets
uncanny
hard.
Leia, by the way, if you're looking at the graphic. Like, this is... it really fucking freaks me out looking at this version of Carrie Fisher. It's not right. It's not right. Yeah. There's nothing behind those eyes, man.
It's not real. But this is where the rankings get hard, because we know Leia's potential.
Of course.
Like, Leia's potential is limitless.
It's greater than Luke's if you listen to Yoda's other point of view.
Exactly. But she made a conscious choice to not follow this path. And because of that, you can't put her higher, because it's not like her training was interrupted by something else. Not like she was killed before she could reach her potential or anything like that. She knew what she could be, and she chose not to follow that path. So you have to put her below some of the other contenders in here. Like, we know that her potential was extremely high, but she chose to go on the path of being the leader of the Resistance, to being more of a political figurehead within the New Republic, and really following that path and choosing to make a difference in a way that wasn't based around her Force sensitivity, but was based around her ability to inspire people and to inspire a galaxy in flux. So
she's a dreamer. She's a dreamer like her dad. She had a dream about her son and was like, all right, fuck this, I quit. So I think we're aligned on this one too. Let me go check. Sure are. So I really can't add much to Nick's argument for Leia at 6. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, yeah, we know she's a Skywalker. We know she's loaded with those middies, but she chose not to take advantage of it and fully realize her potential. Yes, she still dabbled in the Force here and there. We saw that. She saved herself, helped finish Rey's training off screen, by the way, off screen. And, but yeah, Nick, I can't really explain it any better than Nick. And the fact that she just doesn't look like a real living human being when we saw her in The Rise of Sky, or what was that, The Last Jedi?
That was Tross, I think. This was Tross.
Was it? All right. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. I think it was
who the fuck knows? All right. So my number 5, I think we're still aligned on 5, and then shit gets goofy. Din Grogu. All right. These assholes at the Thanksgiving Day parade, like, oh, hey, here comes Grogu. I'm like, his name's Din Grogu. You idiots. All right. Din Grogu at number 5. Okay. All right. Well, listen. Like Leia, he's kind of like, hey, fuck it. I know some shit. Learned a little bit. Hung out with Luke for, I don't know. Jon Favreau says a few years. We say a couple days. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
But he clearly has ridiculous potential. He has retained some of his traditional training. That's why he makes it as BOKKEN, because he never finished training at the temple. He was a fucking baby, for Christ's sake. But just knowing what his species can do with the Force puts him at number 5. I mean, he probably even more so than Leia has a greater potential to tap into some fucking wild Force abilities and power. So that's why I got my man Din Grogu at 5.
I think we're aligned there too. He's my 5. Nick, and
so why do you? I mean, we all know you hate his guts and hope he dies. So why do you have him at 5?
I mean, you laid it out. I mean, he was another instance of like got a taste of the Jedi training and chose to not follow that path. And you know, obviously his story isn't complete yet, and we don't know what lies in the future for him. But up to this point, we know that he has chosen the path of the Mandalorian to walk and not the path of the Jedi, which even with all of his innate ability in his, you know, like that's just built into him as a being, like if he doesn't train in it and he doesn't focus on it and he doesn't choose to walk that path, then he's not going to be able to become as powerful as he could be, and you know, may not even become as powerful as the people that we have listed above him, even though his potential is great. Right. So I think that you know, we're definitely in line. You're
a quitter, Grogu. Din Grogu, you're a quitter.
That's right. I mean, who knows? Maybe after the events of this crossover and everything like that, he may see value in walking the path of the Jedi. But right now, where Grogu sits right now in canon, he is a number 5.
Yeah, he uses his Force to protect his dad and to eat.
And to eat frogs.
Frogs.
That is that's his Force.
All right, Nick. I think this is where things get off the rails a little bit. So Nick's number 4 is Rey from nowhere, aka Skywalker, aka Clone Palpatine baby.
Yeah. So again, I'm only basing this on what is available to us now. I put Rey at 4 because she is clearly a very powerful Jedi that has a ton of potential to grow. But up until this point with her, we haven't really seen her hit her potential yet. But we know that she's going to. We know that she has chosen to follow the path and build her Force essence and her Force abilities up. My problem with that is now you're in the Luke bucket where you had very little training, you have nobody to train you moving forward, and you're kind of just like,
she's got the books.
You got the books, but that's all you got. And like the training that she got, like she probably got less training than fucking Luke did. Like
you didn't just hear me, man. Leia trained her for like a year off screen. She did call Leia master in Tross, so something happened, right?
She did. So she got some training, but
just like Luke's off-screen training. I mean, there's all sorts of off-screen training in Star Wars.
All of the off-screen training that happened. But right now, I think that given who's left, I think that her potential, even though Ben's dead now, I think that her potential, even when they were both alive, was lower than Ben's. I think that Ben had a higher ceiling than she did.
But they're a dyad, Nick. They're linked.
They're a dyad.
All right.
They're a dyad. But I do think that because of Ben's head start in his learning, in his training, learning from one of the most legendary Jedi of all time, being of that,
she knew how to heal before Ben. Ooh,
it's true, but it's because Ben chose the path of the dark, and he didn't unlock that. If you're in the video game world, like, he went on the other skill tree side, like he went towards the dark side, force choke, kill you, read your mind,
the reds,
tree, and
he went reds versus blue.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's asking, when do we get the Taylor Swift Jedi? Whenever, man. Apparently she's moving into the new mansion for the next couple months before her Japanese tour. So if Taylor can do for Star Wars what she's done for the NFL, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
But yeah, I mean, I think for me, Rey comes down at 4 right now because of where we left her journey and what she had learned up to that point.
Okay.
So that's why I have.
I will reserve my commentary until we get to my list, because this is where we kind of separate again. All right. So my number 4, and this was painful. And
I know who
I'm blaming Nick for this. Okay. I put Ezra at number 4, and it hurt. It hurt me emotionally and physically, because I'm a huge Ezra fan. I love him. Mm-hmm. Like he to me is like, he is the BOKKEN Jedi. Him and Luke are the BOKKEN Jedi, the true BOKKEN motherfuckers. I mean, you could argue Ezra is even more BOKKEN than Luke, because he was trained by a fucking Padawan, where Luke was trained by multiple masters, one being a fucking grandmaster. But the reason I put him 4, Nick, is because I do believe 3, 2, and 1 are that much more powerful in the Force. Their potential was bigger. They have done more at the current point of their lives in the Star Wars universe. And because I think it was you on the show at one point in time, you're like, Ezra's a fucking dopey doofus. I was like, okay, well, yeah, you got a point. I don't love this, but I do. For me, it did make sense putting Ezra at 4, because 3, 2, and 1, they're just that much more in tune with the Force. They're way more gifted. They come from what I hate. Thank you, Tross, for making this a thing. The lineage Force users, if you will. And maybe that's why I'm stupid, and he should be where you put him, because he's not a fucking lineage user like Rey should have stayed. And that, in my opinion, makes him even more special than if you came from the nuts of the Chosen One.
Yeah.
But I let outside influence rule me. I got peer pressured. So Nick, Ezra for me comes in at 4.
Yeah, I mean, like, your explanation totally makes sense.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, save yours, because you got them in an interesting position. So
in a different spot.
All right. We'll go to my 3 now, since we're over here. My 3 is Ben. Okay, so you can probably figure out what 2 and 1 is going to be. And the reason, Nick, I went with Ben at 3 versus Rey, kind of like you were saying. I mean, let's be real. They're technically the dyad, so to me, they are equal in the Force, and together they are the strongest Force beings that are out there. At least that's how the movie made it sound, how Palpatine made it sound. Like, whatever this fucking dyad thing is, if it's ever going to be explored again, it's even more potent than the Chosen One himself. But Ben made a lot of poor choices in life. He went dark for a long time, killed a lot of motherfuckers. And in the end, he didn't really help Rey defeat Palpatine. He resurrected Rey after he climbed out of a hole, but he was hanging out down a shaft like most people in his family do. But you made great points. Like he 100% had more in-tune training for longer in his life. But I think because he was so mentally fucked up and torn between his good and his dark side, that he was never able to truly realize his ultimate potential, where Rey, who had less,
still has
less baggage, if you will, she has that ability to now take who she became at the end of Tross and maximize it to the nines. And she ultimately was the one that channeled the Jedi to defeat Palpatine once and for all, not Ben. It was her holding that, blasting him. That's why Ben is 3 for me.
Yeah. So we're aligned on Ben at 3. Obviously, our 1, 2 are different. But the reason why I chose to put Ben over Rey is because it's almost like when you're looking at, career stats for a player, for a football player or something like that. When you look at career stats, even though some of his career stats are in the dark side, he's got more career stats than Rey. His career stats are higher.
Sounds like I smoke a pack a day. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I like that. His career stats.
His career stats are higher.
He rolls more natural 20s. He's got more formal training under a legit school. Luke.
Not only did he have training there, he was powerful enough to rip the whole school down and kill everybody there. And not only did he rip the whole school down and kill everybody there, he was also one of the 2 dark side Force users that essentially vice gripped the galaxy again for a little while.
And he actually beat his pimp, right? He beat his pimp where Vader never, we thought he did, but he didn't.
Yeah, it's like, did he not? I mean, it's kind of a similar situation for Ben Solo and for Anakin Skywalker, because they really both thought they killed their master, and then it turned out they didn't. So similar situations there where it's like in TLJ, like Kylo was the guy. Like he was like after what's his name gets taken out,
Snoke.
like Kylo takes over the First Order. Snoke, like Snoke's dead, Kylo takes over, he's running the ship and everything else. Like
he achieved more than Darth Vader. He became essentially the Emperor.
Exactly. So like while it wasn't for the good, like he climbed that fucking ladder and he got all the way to the top.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I put him over.
I like that. You usually don't think dark like that, but I dig it. See, I went opposite of my soul. I went, well, hey, Rey's just lighter and she vanquished the bad, so she's better than Ben. But you're going, well, listen, his kill streaks are way greater than Rey ever could dream of. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
His body of work.
Let's see who Nick has at 2. Everyone at this point, everyone's kind of through the process of elimination. They've kind of figured out who we fanboyed at 1. I mean, that's not hard, but who's Nick have at 2? Ezra.
It is Ezra.
The guy he hates.
So the reason, and again, like this is the reason why I put Ezra up there. Like Ezra and Ben were hard for me. Ezra and Ben were really hard. I was like, man, should I make Ben 2 or Ezra 2? And it was tough. But I put Ezra where he is because of who he is.
He is a good dude.
Like exactly. Like it's who he is, how he was trained, and what he accomplished in like with his background. Like Ezra was if you want to talk about a Jedi from nobody from nowhere, that's Ezra Bridger for sure. Like Ezra was a little criminal on Lothal that fell into the hands of Phoenix Squadron and then was trained by a Padawan who made his way out of Order 66 and then trains Ezra to become one of the greatest hopes for the rebellion at that time. And
he had a big win before the Skywalker twins did.
Yeah, I mean, was instrumental in taking, well, not even instrumental, was the key cog in taking Thrawn out of play in the known galaxy and like sending him away to Peridia. He helped the rebellion even before that point, helped the rebellion, like, when Callus, like when Callus was a huge thing, like when Callus was a huge enemy, like helped to to take him out and flip him to the good side, and like was really instrumental in the successes that the rebellion had during that time period. And he did it all coming from nowhere, having fucking trash training, and really relying on his own ingenuity and his ability to get it all done.
And then doing it by himself for what, like 12, 13 years.
On fucking in a new galaxy on a desolate planet, surviving for as long as he did. Like,
you're making me feel bad. I was, dude, I'm telling you, like, this is sad for me. I mean, what does it say about I have no guts, essentially? But I had him slated it too as like, oh, Nick's gonna fucking eviscerate that and call me stupid. I was like, I gotta put this other person there because it's very obvious that they're potent. But you are right. I mean, the point you made about Ezra just being a dude, like just a good dude, that you are correct. He probably should have been number 2, but I fucked up. I let Nick get in my head, and I went with Rey Skywalker not. All right, so I think I talked a little bit about why I had Rey further up on the list. It really is, I mean, there's a few personal things. I mean, when I saw TFA, she was it. I was like, fuck, I love this character. I'm going to name my kid after this character, which I proceeded to do. And now my kid doesn't like Star Wars, and she probably hates her middle name, but whatever. I was drawn to this character immediately in The Force Awakens, and I had a ton of expectations, high expectations for her. And I still dug the character all the way through TLJ. I liked how Ryan kept her nobody. But then everything gets fucked up in Tross. But still, if you think about her ultimate accomplishment of being able to truly vanquish Palpatine on her own, channeling an insane amount of light side energy, her dyad connection, whatever the fuck that means, you know, her kinship with the Skywalkers and how they essentially became her adopted family, knowing where things could go with her, and the righteousness she could bring back to the galaxy, I had to put Rey number 2, even though I think my heart wanted to put Ezra number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason that you put Rey there is like totally makes sense. She has the ability to just be a next level powerful that we haven't really seen before, and her story's not finished being told yet, you know? Like, that's kind of the same way that I thought about Ezra. Is like, up to this point, like, Ezra's story is still being told, and we don't know what he's going to accomplish. Or like, if it would look really fucking dumb of me if I put Ezra 2, we go into this movie and Ezra gets fucking
shot
knocked
in the face
out immediately. Yeah, he's just like, he's dead immediately. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, now my 2 doesn't look as good.
He just falls down a hole on a Star Destroyer.
Yeah. It's like, but Rey and Ezra are kind of in the same bucket where Ben and Luke, their stories are told, like, they're over, like, they've reached their maximum level of power. Like, Rey and Ezra are still like in process of having their stories told, and we don't know what type of power they power level they can reach, and we don't know what they're going to accomplish yet because we haven't gotten there, and it's all a mystery. But like, Rey being a number 2 for you makes total sense. I mean, she is the torch carrier of what the Jedi Order, or whatever they're going to be called, is moving forward.
I mean, both Yoda and Luke and TLJ essentially said, like, hey, they're the ones that are going to keep this shit going, so let her do her thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so, future looking, definitely a good
in case anyone was sleeping, my number 1 and Nick's number 1 is the greatest BOKKEN Jedi of all time, and that is Master Luke Skywalker. I mean, come on, this was a no-brainer. I don't know how any other BOKKEN Jedi could be in front of Luke. I guess technically the dyad potentially has more force power potential. But if you just think about Luke from start to finish, like Nick said, I mean, he's got, at this point, a 6-movie arc, more or less. The original trilogy was mostly about him. We saw what he started as. We saw what he ended as. I mean, Luke's number 1 just for what he does in Return of the Jedi. I mean, putting together the plan to save his friend, helping the rebels when he probably shouldn't have, and then doing what he did with his dad to save the day and bring him back to the light. And, you know, obviously being a child of the original trilogy, he was my guy. Like, Luke was the hero, okay? I mean, I was never a Han Solo guy, this, that, and the other thing. It was always Luke. Luke and his dad always kind of popped off the screen to me. So there is no argument here, but I still would like to hear what Nick has to say about Master Skywalker taking the top spot in SWTS's BOKKEN Jedi ranking.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the paragon. He is what every Jedi after him strives to be. And I think that like what he did in such a short amount of time in comparison to other Jedi is ridiculously impressive. I mean, if you look at any Jedi in the Grand Republic who started their training at 2 years old, 1 year old, whatever, like they were conscripted into the Jedi Order as literal infants and had their entire life to train, to grow, to learn, and really hone those abilities. And Luke didn't start his Jedi training until he was 19 years old. And then within a 5-year span, essentially goes from no nothing person to I've taken out not one but 2 Death Stars. I've rid the galaxy with the help of my father of the scourge of Emperor Palpatine, at least for a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, in quotes. Like he put a pause on the Palpatine reign
somehow
for a
he
little
may
bit
return
there.
though.
Yeah, who knows? He redeemed his father at the end of his
It's the
life.
best thing he did.
And not only did he do that, like he inspired, and this is where I think Rey and Luke, at least to this point, differ.
He's a legend.
He inspired a galaxy
Correct.
to rise against evil with just himself. Yes, he had help from his friends and his sister the whole way along, but like he was looked at as the savior of the galaxy. Like, and I don't think that
it's a
Rey
man's
has
world,
that
Nick.
level of
It's even a
recognition.
man's world in Star Wars. I mean, his sister did
true.
way more than he did for a lot longer. But you are right. I mean, they always talked about
Yeah.
that X-wing pilot that took out the Death Star.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
you're making a great point, and I thought you were talking about Luke's legend in the sequels. He's even more legendary during the sequel timeline. Like, people talk about Luke Skywalker as a god almost, right? Like, oh,
Yeah,
Luke.
it's
And,
like
I mean, you saw at the end the little kids, the Broom Boys, they're reenacting the story they heard about Luke showing up and stopping the First Order by himself. So even he did it twice. He not only
Yeah,
motivated the
exactly.
galaxy when he was a kid, he motivated again right before he died. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker was a legendary hero that people would tell their kids about during the sequel timeline. Like, hey, I was alive when Luke Skywalker was out there kicking ass with his green lightsaber. Can you believe that? Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I mean, he is the guy.
yeah, I mean, and he will be the way that they've set Luke up is that he will be the only truly transcendent Jedi that will live on through the annals of history forever. Like, nobody's going to talk about Yoda anymore. Nobody's going to, like, at a certain point, the conversation around...
I mean, Rey may get a bump because she whacks
Yeah.
Palpatine and has more story to
Yeah.
tell. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Luke
And
is the guy now.
he's
Fuck
the- he's the
Obi-Wan,
guy,
fuck
like-
Qui-Gon. No one's talking about them anymore. They're talking about Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he will be the one that persists through time in memorial as the paragon of what a Jedi could
Damn
be.
straight.
And I think that
Yeah, I
that's
mean-
it pushes him over the edge.
Done. Fucking Nick
Done.
nailed it. I mean, there's no argument to what we just laid out in front of you. So hopefully you all dug this little special segment. It was pretty fun. You know, we were out of whack at the tail end of the ranking, came back together for the middle, and then separated again for the top dogs. And we'll keep at it. Like I said, I wrote down the idea today. What if Dave was present for the sequels? That would be fun to talk about. What would TFA have looked like if he was there, or TLJ, or Tross? So we'll work on those. You never know what sort of special topic we'll have for you next week. But if you do have some very targeted ones, make sure to send us an email, DM us, drop some shit right here in the live stream chat. We are here to serve, so much so that we do a fan segment every show. This week, though, we're shortchanging your asses. Yours truly right here. Got a little forgetful after our Thanksgiving break. I forgot to post the question of the week. So we're not going to do that segment this week, but just stay tuned. StarWarsTime.show on Instagram. That's where the question gets posted, usually Monday or Tuesday of a show week. So sorry about that, everyone. I fucked up. But that just gets us to our second fan segment, the one that everyone comes here for, and that is our top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week. So don't forget, the way to get involved is using our hashtag on Instagram, hashtag Star Wars Time Show, and more importantly, ad tag at StarWarsTime.show. You got to do the ad tag. That's where Nick picks his top 5 from, where I kind of pick from around the tag what's being recommended, and I put up our reels every day. All right, James English, I believe this is Mando Mugshots. Sorry we didn't get to the top 5 before you got to go to work, but we will be talking about your shot very soon. All right, Nick, who did you anoint as champions of this past week in the top 5?
The top 5 this week starts with 501st Hard Case. 501st Hard Case hits us with an awesome look at the boys, at the 501st boys. So, in the shot, he calls it reflection, and like really what drew me to this shot was the environmentals around the figures. Like if you look at the reflections in the water, if you look at the environment behind the figures here, it really does feel like we're following them through a mission that they're on, following through, like some sort of infield exercise that they're doing or something like that, and catching the reflections in the water like 501st Hardcase did is just fantastic. Nice, crisp, clean shot here.
Yeah, 501, they're a natural outdoor champion. I don't see any lights being used here. Just using the natural light, throwing down some Star Wars figures out there in the world, snapping pics. It's really my favorite style of toy photography. Sorry about that. So kudos, 501's the hard case. Speaking of toy photography, Nick, I actually had a session over the break. Shot 6 of my Hot Toys to finally get them into their glass containers. It was exciting. All right, moving on.
Next up in the top 5 this week, we got Commander Green. It's Commander Gree _N. And we're taking a look at the great looking figure of Commander Cody here. Is this a Hot Toys? I assume it's a Hot Toys because it looks fucking awesome.
They're looking Hot Toysy. Yeah.
So this is titled The Search for Kenobi, or Searching for Kenobi. So this is on Utapau after Order 66 comes down. Obviously, Cody orders the shot at Kenobi as he's riding on his Vractil across the landscape. And now this is the search for Kenobi's body after the Order 66 has come down. It's a great shot of Cody kind of left of frame, and then you get some other members of his squadron kind of washed out by sunlight coming into the shot here. I just think it was a really cool, poignant shot of one of the most well-known.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. It just speaks to the quality of figure that Hot Toys put out, and it makes me realize that I fucked up not getting Cody as a name. I have like all the other name clones. I got Jesse, I got Hunter, got Crosshair, Echo. No Cody. That's a big fuck up. That is a big fuck up on my part. But yeah, it is another one, I believe, Nick, that's all outdoor natural light setup. I need to get back to that. But it's fucking cold up here in the north, so probably not for a few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta wait for the sun to actually come back out again.
So I gotta stop breaking fucking bones during the warm months so I can actually enjoy them where I live. All right, that's the goal for 24. No broken bones. All right.
There we go. Next up here is Ches picks 66. Ches always gives us some awesome like desert Tatooine style shot, and you hit it. We got the twin sons of Tatooine here on the horizon, showing a Tusken Raider riding a bantha off on a high ridge, and really like the shot here is made incredible by Chez's twin sons that he was able to fit into the shot. The golden sunlight careening across the image, and then that like slightly shadowed figure of the Tusken riding the bantha off to the right of frame. Just a beautiful shot here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a full-on silhouette type of shot because you can see a little bit of the foreground, but it's very close to silhouette. Mm-hmm. And silhouette shots with Star Wars toys on Tatooine with the two sons always look fantastic. And, you know, we know Ches is another one that just has mastered the sunlight, sun rays, sunsets, sunrises in this hobby and produces just some great natural outdoor looking shots.
Indeed. So good stuff there at Ches Picks 66 on Instagram. Next up in the top 5, we have at Mando_mugshots. Mando Mugshots hit us with an awesome Ahsoka inspired pick here. So what we see is the new Master and Apprentice. It's Ahsoka and Sabine. Ahsoka lifting Sabine off of the ground after one of their training sessions. You can see Hu Yang there in the background. Both Ahsoka and Sabine with their sabers lit, but this is a moment where it's like, you know, it's time to train. It's time. Well,
yeah, I mean, his caption is again, so it's like, hey, you know, Sabine got knocked down, Ahsoka's lifting her up. Let's go again. Hu Yang's back there taking notes so he can make fun of Sabine after and tell her that she sucks and she's the worst Jedi candidate ever. But I dig it. Mando is really good at lighting, and I also believe Mando Mugshots is an iPhone photographer, which just again shows to the quality of work produced here. I mean, newer iPhones, they have fantastic camera sensors in them, but a lot of times you can't quite get that bokeh going. You can control aperture a bit, but not a lot. So I'm always impressed with what Mando Mugshots gets out of his device. He's a toy photographer that proves that a lot of times it's not necessarily the gear. It's the person. So the eye, how do you set up? How do you light? Goes a long way in this hobby, which I found out last week trying to do it again after I hadn't done it for about a year. Like, holy shit. I forget a lot of I forget. Hey, I forgot the key light, the overhead light, this light, that light. Oh, too many lights. Now they're looking burnt out, but we'll see. I might get some of those out by 2026. But that's our buddy at Mando_mugshots over on the IG there.
All right, good stuff. And to close out the top 5 for this week, this is at CT.1538. And the reason I picked this, CT1538, this is a custom shot of a Sith figure that's designed after one of the coolest looking masks and armor sets from SWTOR, Star Wars The Old Republic MMO game that I played extensively.
It's the Acolytes, right? Or at least that's what he's calling it, a Sith Acolyte.
So it's like this mask was worn, like, I'm not sure if every Sith Acolyte wore it, but it was worn by like a lot of notable characters that you within the early stages of Sith playthroughs in the game. It's a piece of like mask armor that you can unlock for your own character and wear along the way. But the look of this figure being custom is so spot on to what you see in the game. It was one of my favorite armor sets in the game. In fact, if I log into that game right now, I know that one of my characters is still wearing this armor set.
Oh, shit. So you got some history with this Sith Acolyte.
Yeah, so like as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is gonna make the top 5 for sure, just because it is truly a piece of nostalgia for me. When I was playing this game at the time, it was one of the earlier armor sets in the game during its release period, and it really does, like, it has a Revan feel to it without it being the Revan full Revan armor set. And it sets you in that time period. Like, it puts you in that time of like the Sith were so widespread at that point that they had individual armor sets that felt unique to them. And whoever made this custom did a fantastic job of translating that from the game.
I believe this comes from someone we've talked about before, at 16J. He's the one that just makes ridiculously good-looking, high-end 1/6 scale Star Wars custom figures. Like I actually just was scrolling through. I think he's working on like a Dark Side Cal Kestis right now. He was working on a Plagueis last week. As Nick said, he fucking nails the from either book, screen, game to custom. It's almost a 1-to-1. He is his own Hot Toys manufacturing facility.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely fantastic work. Like having intimate knowledge of this armor set, the fact that he translated it so well over to a physical figure is absolutely incredible. So, good job, 16J and whoever else worked on the custom, and then awesome shot here from CT at CT1538 to bring it to life in photograph form. So, that's the end of the top 5. That's the end of the show for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. But Matt, go ahead and close us out.
Woo, you got it, my friend. It was nice to be back. Although it was great to get, a week off, but it's always good to be talking some Star Wars time with the fans and, of course, with my man, young Nick over here. So don't forget, at the end of every Star Wars Time show, tell a friend, tell a pet, tell a relative about StarWarsTime.net. It's the easiest place you can send them to on the internet to find all the information they need about the SWTS. We've got our podcast platform links there. We got the YouTube link there. All we ask is that you keep StarWarsTime.net in your soul, in your mind, and in your heart. There's always time for Star Wars Time. That's all you need to know, and that's how you need to celebrate and promote the show. Don't forget, if you are already subbed to us, we love ratings and reviews. So if you're on a podcast platform, especially Spotify, make sure to drop a rating if you have not already done so. If you listen to the show on iTunes, listen to it on Spotify too and drop ratings. Ratings are everything to the artificial intelligence that are taking over. So don't forget, there's always time for Star Wars Time. And if you listen to the Star Wars Time show, the Force will be with you always.